Okay, good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order. If everybody would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, welcome to our June action meeting. Mrs. Sugars, would you take roll, please?
Mr. Goodwin?
Here.
Mrs. Judge?
Here.
Mrs. Matlack?
Here.
Mrs. Seidel?
Here.
Mrs. Scarpolino?
Here.
Mrs. Schultz?
Here.
Mr. Tomlinson?
Here.
Dr. Wong? Dr. Dickinson?
Here. All right, our first order of business is approval of the minutes. For this evening, we have the regular action meeting dated April 24th, 2018, and Committee of the Whole and Special Action meeting dated April 10th, 2018. Executive sessions dated April 10th, 2018, and April 24th, 2018. Any errors, omissions, additions? No? Okay, seeing none, do we have a motion to approve? Mrs. Judge, a second. Mr. Tomlinson. Mrs. Sugars.
Mr. Goodwin?
Yes.
Mrs. Judge?
Yes to all.
Mrs. Matlack?
Yes.
Mrs. Seidel?
Yes.
Mrs. Scarpolino?
Yes to all.
Mrs. Schultz?
Yes.
Mr. Tomlinson?
Yes to all.
Dr. Dickinson?
Yes to all. Do we have any correspondence this evening? I believe Mrs. Judge has something for us.
I wanted to report on 2 meetings that I attended and then a few other things. But so I'll try to skim through the other things. So anyway, the Garden State Coalition of Schools annual meeting was on Wednesday, May 30th. So Dr. Merlash and I attended that Wednesday. This was the largest group of board members and superintendents to attend this meeting ever at Forsgate Country Club in Monroe Township, New Jersey. Jordan Schiff, the president of Garden State, who's also the superintendent of Hillsborough, mentioned several items of interest and change over the past year, including park testing, graduation requirements, changes to Chapter 78, what is it called, sunsetting, or to Chapter 78, and failure to fund the SFRA. The commissioner of the Department of Ed, Dr. Ropalette, was the keynote speaker, and he referred to the Department of Education as experiencing an update 2.0. He kept on saying that, update 2.0. He is concentrating on school funding and school security, but his biggest hurdle is the transitioning away from the park testing. There was also a panel discussion that morning moderated by John Mooney from New Jersey Spotlight. The panel included Assemblywoman Mila J.C., Assemblyman Andrew Zwicker, along with New Jersey Board of Ed Vice President Andrew Mulvihill, and 2 superintendents, Chuck Sampson from Freehold Regional and Jordan Schiff from Hillsborough. Questions that were asked of the panel included thoughts on where we're headed in the next month regarding school funding, what the impact the 2% cap has on our districts, to questions regarding curriculum, roadblocks to innovation in public schools, etc. The Assembly members, this is just paraphrasing the entire 3-hour-long morning. The Assembly were understanding of the district woes, and their answers were very politically correct, and they I think it was Assemblyman Zwicker said that he doesn't think we're going to go to I am speechless tonight with the words. We're not going to do what we did last year with the shutdown. Yeah, I'm sorry, government shutdown. We're not going to do that this year. We'll see. We'll see shortly. So my personal opinion only, this is my personal opinion, that the vice president of the New Jersey Board of Ed is not quite in touch with public school districts, even though he's a Board of Ed member for the state. He stated he thinks there are too many administrators in school districts, and he's a strong supporter, made it very clear he's a strong supporter of charter schools. So this, again, this is always an interesting meeting you attend. They're always interesting. every month they're interesting, but the yearly annual meeting is always very interesting to attend if you ever have the opportunity. The next Garden State meeting is not until September 26th. It'll be held in East Brunswick, and the guest speakers already been arranged will be Senate Minority Leader Tom Kane. And I know that the executive board, Betsy Ginsburg is trying to organize a meeting with Dr. Ropolette to meet with the executive board this summer. It has not been organized yet. It hasn't even been attempted that I'm aware of. I did want to mention that I attended the Wall of Honor at West on May 25th, the unveiling of the military Wall of Honor at West. If you ever have the opportunity to go and view it, you should. It's when you go down the atrium of the new auditorium, it's on the right. Keep on walking around and it's on the right. It was a very nice, well-attended, meaningful event, and I enjoyed watching the flag folding ceremony. It was really, really well done. Mrs. Matlack and I attended the retiree tea on Thursday, June 7th. We also attended the West Academic Awards Night on Friday, June 8th, and the academic brunch on Sunday, June 10th. So I'm just, because I have another thing to report on, again, if you ever have the opportunity to attend these, the academic brunch is one of my favorites other than graduation day. The keynote speaker of that event was a graduate of West in 1968, Stephen Greenberg. He's president of Flaster Greenberg in Cherry Hill. He mentioned that he was the oldest alumni ever to be invited, so I can say that because he mentioned it. He only attended Cherry Hill schools for a portion of his junior year and senior year before, I think he moved here from Pennsylvania, if I recall. Oh, from Maryland, that's right, from Maryland. He still lives in Cherry Hill. His grandkids go to Cherry Hill schools, and he met the love of his life at West when he was high school. She was also there, so it was really interesting. It was fun. It was fun. So the last thing I had to report on is the park feedback session I attended at Manalapan High School on Monday, June 11th. Started at 2:30. I got there at 2:32. Commissioner Ropolette was already talking. There were at least 40 people in attendance there. Most were Freehold Regional employees. There were about 8 to 10 Manalapan High School students. There was only one other board member that I'm aware of, and I kind of looked at the list, the sign-in list with our emails, and from Middletown. There was a board member from Middletown there. Dr. Ropolette, he's quite an impressive guy. Hearing him speak at the Garden State annual meeting and then here, he's calling these meetings around the state listening tours. He's attended about 11 thus far. Now, this was 2 weeks ago that I attended this. He said that he's most impressed with what the kids have to say around the state. They have asked some great questions. Why do they have to take park? What's the relevance of park? They know what the purpose of the ACT or SAT is for their future. Why park? Why, what? So, and this was him speaking at the time. The plan for phase 1 of this process is a giant Wordle to be shared, and this will be done by the end of June. A transition report will be distributed by midsummer, and phase 2 of this will be during the 18-19 school year. What that looks like, Dr. Ropolette said he's not sure what that looks like. At the beginning of the meeting, when we were all together, an employee from the Department of Ed asked us to share some positive of park and what are some things that need to be worked on. And 90% of the comments were what needed to be worked on or improved. Most of the comments were on the order of formatting of the test, the amount of class time spent on park, the need for more immediate results, the resources needed, computers, time, space, and staffing. So that's just in a nutshell. They expected 300 responses to the park feedback meetings that they wanted around the state, and they received more than 2,200 requests. So as of 2 weeks ago, there were 70 meetings throughout the state on the calendar. He wants to make sure that we stay in the top 3 in the nation, and he used Massachusetts as an example since they're number 1, and he wants New Jersey to be on the cutting edge. At 3:30, we broke up into smaller groups to work on 3 questions. One was, why do we assess students? Number 2 is 2 questions, actually. Number 2 was, How do we use the data from the assessments and who uses this data? And number 3 was, what improvements would you like to see the next generation of assessments to look like? So Caitlin Fletcher, who was our group leader from the Department of Ed, who ironically is a Cherry Hill West graduate, was our group leader, and the kids in our group had the best answers to these questions. One student mentioned that it is difficult to study for PART because there is no study guide like ACT or SAT. They have no clue how to prep for the test. The test questions can be very confusing to some kids. Sometimes all the answers could be correct, which I never did well on tests like that, ever. So all the questions could be correct. The need to choose the most correct answer was what was needed, and that really caused confusion with the kids when they were done with the test, talking about it after. The timing of the PARCC testing is also a concern of the kids, being so close to AP testing in May. It was very, very frustrating for them. Regarding question number 2, one of the administrators in my group mentioned that the College Board uses, I might need help here, they use an IPR, which is an instruction planning report for AP, that gives you data on how each student did on each question. And that's kind of what PARCC wants to do, but the AP, they already do this for AP, so the College Board can do this. And another administrator in our group said that she stated that she heard that only, now this is a rumor, this is what she heard. So only 17 questions on one of the tests were actual questions. The rest of the questions were field test questions. And Dr. Ropalet was walking by, and he was shocked to hear that. He had not heard that before in any of the other feedback sessions he had attended. So he said that he would look into it and to see if that was true. So other than that, it's always interesting to go to other high schools. I've been to West Orange and Manalapan this year. It's very interesting. So this is because this is true. Manalapan High School has a koi pond in their, I guess I like stopped mid-step and had to take a picture. They have a koi pond. So that is my report. Any questions? Any questions? Well, all I know is there was a pregnant one. The superintendent knew that there was a pregnant one, and I'm not asking how you. Well, you know. So many koi in the koi pond. So back to you, Dr. Dickinson. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mrs. Judge. Any other correspondence? Anybody? No? Okay. All right, we have no presentations this evening, so we'll move to our first board member reports this evening. I guess we'll start off with West. Caught you off guard. Turn your mic on, Sonia. Just press a button. There you go.
Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. So, general report on the school climate at Cherry Hill West. For this report that I put together, I took the time to interview students from all different grades at West, as well as interview different program coordinators to figure out just how generally students felt about their academic and extracurricular experience at the school. And a general consensus is that things are okay for students. They feel as though they can find circles in the West community where they feel safe and supported and accepted. And in their academic careers, they feel as though they are also being fairly well supported by teachers and other staff in the school. The main concerns that I've been hearing from students about the academic and extracurricular programs and just the general climate at West is actually the one most recurring complaint that I heard was general states of disrepair around the schools. One student I interviewed mentioned that as he was walking out of the school one day to go to the bus room, a portion of one of the tile ceilings fell from the roof as he was walking and almost hit him on the head. Other students have reported seeing unwelcome guests in classrooms and hallways, mice, roaches, and the like. We've had some issues with leakage in bathrooms and other areas of the school. It's a bit concerning, but I feel as though efforts that are being proposed in the bond referendum to improve infrastructure in not just West building, but in all the buildings throughout the district should help to assuage some of those complaints. And others were about, one I found that was very compelling was in the athletics. I interviewed a few students who played several sports in the West Athletic Department, and one of the students I interviewed said that she felt as though certain sports did not, and the people who participated in certain sports did not receive the same amount of support and recognition for the hard work that they put into the sports as kids who do other activities. And she felt that this wasn't a very good way to have the athletic department be, where everybody puts in the same amount of hard work every single week, going to practices every day and playing games against other schools, and then to have certain athletes' efforts be swept under the rug, since whether it be the other students or the school community or the township community has a preference for one sport over another. And I just felt that it was concerning having students who felt as though they weren't being recognized or acknowledged by their community. That just made me a little sad. And I think that'll be it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. East?
Good evening, esteemed members of the Board of Education. I just have a brief update of the general events that have been occurring at East over the past month. On May 31st, seniors celebrated the end of their time at East at the Senior Prom at the Constitution Center in Philadelphia, which was a successful event, and they enjoyed their night in the city together. The school hosted a variety of other senior-oriented activities, including a yearbook signing party on the 6th and the senior skating party at the Cherry Hill Skate Center on the 7th. The Cherry Hill Education Foundation recognized some seniors from our district at the annual academic brunch on the 10th, and all of these events led up to graduation, which took place at the Lyacora Center on the 19th at 4 p.m., followed by project graduation that night, which was successful, as it always tends to be. Besides all of these activities for seniors, the rest of the school community has also been very busy at the end of the year. On June 8th, the Student Government Association hosted their 4th movie night at East. The movie was Spider-Man Homecoming, which was shown on the front field of the school. It was a free event, had a fantastic turnout, and it was a great way to celebrate the last day of regular classes that day. Final exams took place the following week, which was a bit stressful for some students, but it wrapped up the academic year for the rest of the students at the high school. So in these past couple of weeks, the spring season for athletics also came to a close. All of the teams and individual athletes showed great success in their spring season, so we're looking forward to another successful year of athletics in the 2018-2019 school year. The Thespian Society recognized their newest inductees for the upcoming school year at their inductions on the 6th, and the music department at East hosted their annual senior solo night on the 7th to showcase the talented seniors in the department and all that they've contributed to their time at East. And then over the summer, a variety of different athletic, academic, and artistic activities will be hosted at the high school through the township. So there will still be plenty of activity at East over the next couple of months. But it was a pretty fun celebration of the year over the past month, and we're looking forward to another great school year starting in the fall. So thank you for giving me the time to share this update.
Thank you both very much. I know that's not easy. gets easier as you move along, so a little easier each month. Very good to hear from both of you what's going on in the schools and some of the concerns that you have with the schools themselves. So thank you very much. All right, at this time we will have our first public discussion. Your comments must be regarding items on the action agenda for this evening. When you come to the mic, please state your name and address, as well as the number of the item to which you will be speaking on the agenda. You will have 3 minutes for your remarks. Please note the green light will turn yellow when you have 30 seconds remaining. The light will turn red when your 3 minutes are up. Anybody on anything on the agenda this evening? No? Okay. So we'll move on to our superintendent comments. Dr. Malash, I'll turn the mic over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Dickinson. So today, Tuesday, June the 26th, is actually the very end of our academic year here in Cherry Hill. Today was the last day the teachers worked. Our teachers work a 187-day calendar. We had full day in-service programs on Monday on the 25th and on Friday the 22nd for all of our teachers, and we still had a group of teachers who participated in service today. So today is actually the end of the academic year, which seems like it's gone by incredibly quickly for us. Just some updates on what's gone on in the past month, and I appreciate Mrs. Judge talking about the Garden State Coalition Schools meeting that we attended. It was actually the second day in a row that I had some time to spend with Dr. Repolet, who at the time was the acting commissioner, is now the commissioner of education for the Department of Education. The day before that, Tuesday, the opportunity to attend a meeting up at the Department of Education with the commissioner that was set up by members of our Cherry Hill Fair Funding Committee, and then helped to be organized by Senator Jim Beach. The mayor and I also attended the meeting. The commissioner gave us a little more than an hour in discussion as the folks kind of laid out the challenges that we have and have experienced here in Cherry Hill because of the inadequate funding that we have received from the state of New Jersey and the undue burden and the stress that it places on the taxpayers in Cherry Hill. So I was very pleased with the discussion that took place. I was very pleased with the commissioner and the way that he responded and the follow-up discussion that we had the next day as well. We are all eagerly anticipating a state budget being adopted hopefully by the end of this week because again June 30th is the date where the government shuts down again. You know, there has been a different thoughts that have been placed out there about the additional funding that will come through, and again school funding has been a primary topic of discussion. So we eagerly as a district and as a community are anticipating what those final numbers look like. It has certainly been a long and tireless effort has been put in by many folks throughout the community, by you as board members, you know, to continue the discussion moving forward. So I'm grateful for that. The end of May and the beginning of June into the middle of June were certainly time of celebration for us as a school district. It was my pleasure to attend many events as scholarships were awarded at High School East and at High School West. The annual academic brunch that's supported by the Cherry Hill Education Foundation. It's truly the one big event that is done district-wide that honors students from both of our high schools. And again, an ongoing discussion I think that we need to continue to have as a community is how we honor our children, and they are our children. This is our district. It is one district. And it's a phenomenal opportunity to bring those the children together. You know, a week ago today, we graduated almost 1,000 children from Cherry Hill, and the level of success academically and the level of preparation that those children have as they move on into the world to go to college, to go to work, and those very special kids that have selected to go into the military, you know, and they were honored at both graduation ceremonies, you know, and truly represent less than 1% of our population, you know, the folks that choose to go into the military, you know, and to serve our country. But a phenomenal day of celebration. You know, there are those of us that were lucky enough to be at the Leah Chorus Center from about 8:30 that morning and until about 6:30 or 6 o'clock that night, you know, and to watch those kids and to watch the families celebrate. At some point, the graduations, you know, I'm sure we'll post them. They'll be online, you know, or be on the TV station, be able to see them. But just one of the things I talked about with the kids and with the families is about seeing their faces, you know, and truly the faces and the looks in the kids' eyes and the looks in the face of the families, you know, as their children participated in graduation. It truly is a community celebration. We tell the kids all along that graduation is about celebrating them, but it really is about the families and honoring, and for us to be able to come together as a community to do that together. So a tremendous time. I'm grateful to all the parents and the community members that supported Project Graduation. Again, I had the opportunity, to stop by and to visit both of them. High School East at the Racket Club and High School West at the JCC. Again, tremendous nights that are safe, that are provided by the community. More than 25 years that they've run here in Cherry Hill and continue to go strong. So a wonderful evening. Then also was able to participate and to see the Cruci graduation ceremony and the Rosa graduation ceremony. So saw some of the 5th grade moving up ceremonies on Thursday, and just kind of brings it to a tremendous crescendo for all of the kids. Summer will go by very quickly. There's only a little more than 70 days before school opens, before we get back together with all the staff on September 4th, which is the Tuesday after Labor Day, and then school begins on Wednesday, September the 5th. And it is a full day of school at our secondary schools, and it's a half day of school at the elementary schools. There's a lot that is going to take place between now and September the 4th. Some of that we'll talk about tonight, and some of that will be continuing in discussion. We have talked almost for the course of the year. We are optimistic that we are going to be approving the referendum questions this evening. We are still waiting a response from the Department of Ed. The final date that they're supposed to have it back to us is by July 4th. So hopefully we'll have that information will return to us either next Wednesday on July the 3rd or on Friday, July the 5th. And then we will look to adopt the questions during the July board cycle. We are itching to talk with the community about this is finally what the questions are going to be. This is what the impact of the referendum will be. This is what we've done, in so much discussion over the course of the last 2 years. So we continue to wait and eagerly anticipate what that will look like. As more information is available, we'll continue to share that. For the families and the kids, please make sure you're doing your summer reading. That is out there. There are assignments that are posted on the website. You can find it at the schools. Contact the guidance office. We continue to welcome new families into the community, as well as registration continues to be very busy.
Joe, just a quick congratulations to you and your family with your graduate.
Yes, thank you. Yes, our third, Shannon, graduated last Tuesday, so we will have 3 kids in college for the foreseeable future starting next year. Yes, so very excited. And again, as my kids have gone through, we still have one daughter who will be a junior in high school next year. As close as the 4 girls are in age, they've had dramatically different experiences as they've traveled through the system. I'm grateful to, they attended Kingston and Cruci and High School West. I'm grateful to the teachers, the wonderful people that have made an impact in their lives and the administrators in those buildings. But it was an exciting day for us. It certainly was. Thank you.
3 children in college at once. God,
yes.
God bless you. Can only imagine. I do want to point out that also on this evening's agenda is the ratification of the contract with the Cherry Hill Education Association, which represents all the certificated employees in the district. Happy to announce that we're extending a contract with them another 2 years. I want to thank everybody on the negotiation committee at the table here. Certainly want to congratulate all the certified staff out there. To get this done in advance of the school year is good news to all of us, and to the administration as well, to get this all sewn up before the school year starts and before summer starts. Even better news. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we'll move into our action agenda. We'll start with C&I. Mrs. Seidel, would you move the agenda, please?
Thank you, Dr. Dickinson. The superintendent recommends, and I move the following. Number 1, approval of attendance at conferences and workshops for the 2018-2019 school year. Number 2, approval of out-of-district student placements for the 2017-2018 school year. Number 3, approval of out-of-district student placements for the 2018-2019 school year. Number 4, approval of supplemental literature books for the 2018-2019 school year. Number 5, approval of additional supplemental literature books for the 2018-2019 school year. Number 6, approval of bilingual waiver 2018-2019. Number 7, agreement between the Cherry Hill Board of Education and the Burlington County Special Services School District to provide K-12 educational and therapeutic services. Number 8, approval of agreements for the 2018-2019 school year. Number 9, approval of service agreements for the 2018-2019 school year. Number 10, approval of use of hosting services license. Number 11, approval of service agreements between the board and Interactive Kids and Invo Healthcare to provide behavior consultation and analysis. And number 12, approval to accept fiscal year 2019 IDEA allocation. Do I have a second? Mrs. Judge, any questions or comments? Seeing none, Mrs. Sugars.
Mrs. Seidel,
Yes to all.
Mr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Judge,
I need to abstain on item number 8, the Cooper Health System. Yes to the remainder.
Mrs. Matlack,
Yes.
Mrs. Scarpellino,
Yes to all.
Mrs. Schultz,
I need to abstain to item 8, Bayetta Home Health. Yes to the rest.
Mr. Tomlinson,
Yes to all.
Dr. Dickinson.
Yes to all. Mr. Goodwin, would you move B and F, please?
Yes, I will. Thank you. I just want to point out that you each should have a supplement for number 8. That was in the agenda. It's just a placeholder. And also there's an addition, blue addition for item number 4 as well. So with that, the superintendent recommends that I move the following: 1, financial reports; 2, resolutions; 3, transfer of current year surplus to reserve; 4, resolution for the award of bids; 5, resolution for the award of reprographics contract; 6, a resolution for the award of transportation; 7, resolution for the award of change orders; 8, resolution approving the shared services agreement between Cherry Hill Township and Cherry Hill Board of Education for turf field maintenance; 9, resolution approving vended meals contracted between Yale School West, Ellisburg, and Cherry Hill Board of Education; and 10, acceptance of donations. Do I have a second? Mrs. Seidel, are there any questions? If not, Mrs. Sugars?
Mr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Judge,
Yes to all.
Mrs. Matlack,
Yes to all.
Mrs. Seidel,
Yes.
Mrs. Scarpellino,
Yes to all.
Mrs. Schultz,
I need to abstain from Bayetta Home Health on the bill list. Yes to the rest.
Mr. Tomlinson,
Abstaining from Bancroft NeuroHealth on the bill list. Yes to the remainder.
Dr. Dickinson.
Yes to all. Mrs. Judge, would you move HR, please?
Yes, I will, Dr. Dickinson. We have a lengthy agenda here. The superintendent recommends, and I move the following: number 1, termination of employment certificated; number 2, termination of employment non-certificated; number 3, appointment certificated; number 4, appointments non-certificated; number 5, contract renewals, non-affiliated certificated staff 2018-19 school year; number 6, contract renewals, non-affiliated, non-certificated staff 2018-19 school year; number 7, contract renewals, certificated staff; number 8, leaves of absence certificated; number 9, leaves of absence non-certificated; number 10, assignment salary change certificated; number 11, assignment salary change non-certificated; number 12, other compensation certificated; number 13, approval of revised job descriptions; number 14, first reading of revised policy; number 15, affiliation agreements; number 16, other motions; number 17, approval of sidebar agreement. So I need to make 2 different announcements. The first one is on item number 2, the 4th name needs to be withdrawn. Hansa Kanzaria needs to be withdrawn. And then we have a pink handout with additions to numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 12, and the addition of number 18, ratification of the CHEA agreement. Do I have a second? Mrs. Matlack. Are there any questions? And before I hand it off to Mrs. Sugars, I just want to publicly thank the board members that are on this committee and the administration and Mr. Green for this being done before the end of the school year, which is unheard of. So as a board member that's never been on CHEA negotiating team, I thank you tremendously. So thank you for all this hard work and the lengthy meetings that you guys attended and etc. So Mr. Goodwin.
I just really want to throw one thing out, also related to the CHEA agreement. I just have to say that it was truly a pleasure working with the teachers. I felt like we had a great relationship. It was a great negotiations. You know, we didn't always agree, obviously, but it was just really a great opportunity. I felt like being with the teachers and negotiating with them, and I feel like we both came out pretty happy with what we ended up with. So,
anyone else? And seeing no questions, Mrs. Sugars.
Mrs. Judge,
Yes to all.
Mr. Goodwin,
yes.
Mrs. Matlack,
Yes to all.
Mrs. Seidel,
Yes.
Mrs. Scarpellino,
Yes to all.
Mrs. Schultz,
Yes.
Mr. Tomlinson,
Yes to all.
Dr. Dickinson.
Yes to all. Before we move to P&L, I'm going to turn the mic over to Dr. Milosh.
Thank you, Dr. Dickinson. There's somebody that I would like to introduce you to, but just to add to everybody else, again, congratulations on settling the contract. CHEA and Mr. Redfern, who's the president of CHEA, is in the audience tonight. Special kudos to he and to his team for the work that they did. And I agree, Mr. Goodwin, you know, as you talked about it, there was it was not an adversarial experience, right? Both sides came in with clear eyes and clear head and a perspective of wanting to do this and do it in a productive manner. Definitely a step forward for all of us, you know, which benefits our community, benefits our children, benefits our family. So kudos to the board and to CHEA, to the members of the negotiating team. You know, there's something to be said for strong leadership and for the folks who were involved in terms of what went on. So I'm incredibly grateful, and we have tried to find anecdotally as to if there has been a contract settled prior to the end of June. We certainly have had one settled prior to school starting in September, but settling to the end of June. So nice work, and it raises the level, you know, 2 years from now, and because a year from now we'll start the process again, so that we'll be ready 2 years from now to again, you know, replicate this. But we've had a lot of discussion in our community about civil discourse and how do you disagree, and there's ways to disagree and to move forward and to do it productively. So a lot of credit to the board and to CHEA. You know, I was very pleased to be a part of the process as it went on. The second piece is, you know, as we made some changes and shifted directions with what we're doing in terms of safety and security in our district, the board made the determination, you know, to do two things this spring. One was to revise policy and to have the 4 campus police officers that are currently employed by us be fully equipped and to be armed in carrying out their duties. And the second was through recommendation to expand the campus police force, going from 4 armed campus police officers that finished the academic year with us last Thursday to having 9 armed campus police officers who worked for us effective at the beginning of the academic year. This evening you approved 3 of those new campus police officers, Mr. Wayne Davis, Mr. Sean Redman, and Mr. John Yoon. Unfortunately, Mr. Redman and Mr. Yoon were unable to be with us, but I am very excited to introduce you to Mr. Wayne Davis. So Wayne, if you would take a walk up to the podium. And 2 things as we'll ask Mr. Davis just to share very brief thoughts with us. One, a special thank you to Mr. Saporito and to Ms. Adrian for the interview process they set up, and the job has been reposted as we still have 2 more positions to fill. Incredibly efficient, and in terms of the quality of the pool of candidates that Mr. Saporito and Ms. Adrian sent forward to us, I was very excited. I had the opportunity to spend some time with Mr. Davis at the end of last week, and I'm very excited about him joining the school district and the role that he's going to fill. So, Mr. Davis.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the board and everybody present, especially Dr. Milosh and Mr. Saporito and Ms. Adrian for welcoming me so warmly to your family here. I'm really excited about the prospect of being working with all of you closely. I really see that Cherry Hill is a very tight-knit community, and I'm looking forward to being a part of that. Anything that I can do to facilitate a safer environment for the faculty and the students is something that I really look forward to being, working with you to do. Dr. Milosh and Mr. Saporito really have some really good ideas and things that I want to be on the ground floor with. So I'm very excited to work with both of these gentlemen. And Ms. Adrian has done a wonderful job with the human resources aspect of it, as far as facilitating an easy transition into your family here. I really appreciate the welcome that everyone has given me. Thank you so much. My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Welcome. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So we'll move into the P&L. Mrs. Scarpolino, would you please move the agenda?
Certainly, Dr. Dickinson. Just to point out, for item number 6, we do have a supplement. There were additions to that. The superintendent recommends, and I move the following. Number 1, waiver of regulation 2340 field trips. Number 2, first reading of policies and regulations. Number 3, second reading of policy and regulation. Number 4, approval of revised 2018-2019 school calendar. Number 5, approval of 2019-2020 school calendar. And number 6, approval of harassment, intimidation, and bullying investigation decisions, with the exceptions of incidents number 5006 and 5026, as we are reversing those 2 incident groups. Do I have a second? Mrs. Judge. Before I ask if there are any questions or move for the vote, I just wanted to give some background and some comments on the items number 4 and 5 having to do with school calendars. Those 2 items, the 2 calendars, have been on the P&L committee agenda the past 2 months, and we've discussed them in length about changing the dates for making up inclement weather after mid-March. As you know, this year we had almost all of our snowstorms after mid-March, and it required a lot of extra days having to be added on to the end of the calendar. So we were discussing making changes to that, which would necessitate, if we had to go beyond, hopefully we don't have another winter like that, but if we had to go beyond the 3 makeup dates that we set aside, that would be through February, instead of adding them on to the end of the school year, there would be dates taken from the spring break. The necessity in doing that was because, one of the main reasons was with the construction that we anticipate doing this summer, and over the summer rather, due to the bond passage, which we assume was going to happen, it would be impossible to sort of start right away. We want to get as many days in summer as possible, to do as much construction as possible. And if we're going into the end of June for school, and then you have the July 4th holiday, which is going to break up that first week of July, where at least 1, if not more days, would be missed for construction, then you're really talking about almost mid-July before we're starting on these construction problems. Also, there were already problems we've been having with tacking them on the end of the year, as we have seen in other years, but particularly this year, when camps are already in session that parents have paid for and students need to attend. They can't do that. There's they end up being delayed and being able to do things like that at the end of the year. We had to change the moving up ceremonies for the elementary schools. We'd have to change the dates of the graduations for eighth graders. So all of these problems we've anticipated in the past, and this year in particular, they really came to a head. And also, when we tack the days onto the end of the year, it's not really instructional learning time that's going on at that point, right? The students are basically done. They're not interested in learning. And in fact, a community member even pointed that out and thought, who was a teacher, and thought that at one of the meetings, that it's a good idea to do it probably at the spring break, where there'd be actual learning going on, than at the end of the year. Also, I know there was some concern, particularly with the 1920 calendar, in that the dates we were going to be taking from the end of the spring break, the Friday, the Thursday, and the Wednesday as needed, and that caused some difficulties and conflicts with Passover and Good Friday holidays for people who are observant of those holidays. And so we did adjust that, excuse me, so that those would not be the days taken. It would start with the Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday. And again, this is only if needed to be done. So that was the thinking that went into making the changes to the calendar. I'm hoping we don't even have to ever come to this. As I said, I hope we don't have another winter like we did this year and have all of our storms basically after the middle of March. But that was the rationale to make this change. So having said that, are there any questions on the agenda? Seeing none, Mrs. Sugars.
Mrs. Scarpolino?
Yes to all.
Mr. Goodwin?
Yes.
Mrs. Judge?
Yes to all.
Mrs. Matlack?
Yes to all.
Mrs. Seidel?
Yes.
Mrs. Schultz?
I need to abstain to item 6, number 17-18, 5022. Yes to the rest.
Mr. Tomlinson?
Yes to all.
Dr. Dickinson?
Yes to all. Okay, we have no strategic planning items this evening, so we'll move right into our second public discussion period. You may now comment on any issue. When you come to the mic, please state your name and address. You will have 3 minutes for your remarks.
Well, David Rossi, 102 Roanoke Road. Good evening, everyone. A lot of things happening. Lots of activity at the end of the year. I know everyone is very busy, and you give your time very graciously, and we do thank you as community members who are involved and trying to be involved as much as we can. We know that you guys do an awful lot of work. A few things that I'd like to point out and thank, first off, the board for joining the lawsuit for the fair funding. I think that that really shows a collaboration between the community as well as the leadership. I think that that's something that's definitely necessary. As community members, we would like to see a bit more presence when it comes to the budgetary process that's been going on, as that's going constantly. I know there's a number of districts that have been out there, out in front, advocating for fair funding in their own way. And I think that that would be of value. So thanks for that. As far as the security and the school resource officer, I did have time to speak with him out in the hallway, and want to thank you again for, as Pat McCargo had stated, representing our community in the fashion that we are a community, a diverse community, and hiring someone that is not only an accomplished police officer in New Jersey who is retired, but is also a member of the community where he lives, but he's represents the African American community here, and it reflects very well. And as we as community members, as we've mentioned before, that's an extremely important topic as we go through the process of understanding the roles of the SROs and how they're changing. I would like to request that, if it's possible, as community members, we would find value in having something similar to the coffee conversation that the superintendent had with maybe, administration leadership and some of the school resource officers or head of security to discuss some of our concerns directly and openly in a forum. There could be back and forth discussion. I think that that would be a very valuable thing. Members of the minority community as well as members of the special needs community, I think, would have comfort knowing that they can have some open dialogue and their questions would be at least heard, understood, and be able to be processed. And then they could be brought to, when it comes to providing insight on, policies and procedures and things of that nature, at least we feel that they would be well heard. All right? And thank you.
So it is a little unfair. I have to go second because you guys already said what I wanted to say. But I do. I want to echo the words of Mr. Goodwin as well as Dr. Malash, Dr. Dickinson as well. I do appreciate the work of Jane, Lisa, Carol, Eric, and also Dr. Malash and Ms. Sugars with negotiations. I agree. We can disagree, but when you do it in a respectful manner, there's a lot of positives that come out of it and a lot of good talking. And this was I've been involved in it for 3 or 4 rounds, and I believe this was the best, that I've seen. So I appreciate the teamwork, the cooperation, the meetings at night, the 3 a.m. meeting to resolve this. So, and we're looking forward to the next 2 years. And you're right, Dr. Malash, we'll be back at it in 2 years, but that's how it works, and we'll continue that progress that we made this time. So thank you again.
Well, guess I need to preset my... Okay, I begin. I'll go right to it. Gonna skip all my nice talk. Yesterday, I was at a township meeting.
Could you state your name and address, please?
Okay, sure. It's Rick Short, 1002 Chelton Parkway. Last night I was at a town council meeting. I pointed out 18 failures that are occurring in our security. I also pointed out that the mayor promised that he was going to do 19 schools protected, and you're only going to have 3 schools that are really protected on September 5th. This is what one of the council people said. Basically, she said that it's not a good thing that I mentioned that someone can get a bomb into a school. She was very upset with that, and she also cut the entire meeting was cut 10 minutes short because my reply came directly after she said that. Because it's not acceptable that someone can get a bomb into a school. It's not acceptable that there's 18 failures occurring. So what did I do? I contacted my friend Lori Aladef in Florida. And I asked her, I said, you had 32 warnings from police about your shooter. You had a Secret Service agent warn you. You had FBI warnings. You had no live feed cameras. And also, the school board was hoarding millions of dollars in physical money for physical security. And this is her reply to me and to Cherry Hill. When the warning signs are not taken seriously or ignored, children die. I know everyone thinks this can't happen and won't happen to their school. I never thought my daughter, Alyssa, would be shot 10 times writing in her English class. You need to stop the bureaucracy to get in the way and change things. Honestly, take a look at your security and be open-minded. Ladies and gentlemen, there are 8 Voorhees schools that are fully protected on September. It is not acceptable that 16 of ours aren't. I can't finish it. Thank you.
Ben Uvadia, 100 Roanoke Road, Cherry Hill, New Jersey. From where? Right there. All right, I'm going to finish Rick's. Honestly, look at your school security with an open mind. Think to yourself, would it be safe for my own child to go here? As a board member, did you do everything in your power to make change in school safety? You don't want the death of children to be on your hands because you did not make schools the safest they can possibly be. As from Lori, who lost a daughter at Parkland. Right? I just wanted to say, teacher contract. Good job. Good job. All right, 2 years. It doesn't go over. You get it done this year. Just good job. Good job. They're good people. As we look at a decade of neglect by the state, $150 million we didn't get. How does Cherry Hill even find a way to compete? And I think it's the teachers. As Dr. Melange says, it's the most important relationship formed in the schools. Of course it is. They're great people. Good for you, Mr. Redfern. Good for all of you. It's necessary. It needed to be done. You got it done. I appreciate it. I think there are 1,000. I've posted on Facebook. It's getting likes and loves. I mean, people are we're all on team teacher and team, keeping this district great. So good job, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Anybody else? No? Okay. Well, thank you for coming out. Appreciate it. We'll have a motion to adjourn. Mrs. Judge and Mr. Goodwin. Good night, everybody. Thank